It is truly the off season at Florida State. Welcome into Seminoles Live right here at the Voice of College Football. And you know the deal. Comments and questions are welcome. Super chats are available as well. If you would like to support George and myself and what we do here at the Voice of College Football, appreciate you stopping by. As always, please hit the like button, get that out of the way early. George and I have a number of personnel decisions to review, but it's pretty much a lot of administration kind of stuff. A lot of how is the roster going to be filled out? Let's look over the transfer portal. Most of the moves have been made, but of course, high school football recruiting going toward 2026 is nearing some important dates. So, George, we appreciate you stopping by. As always, catch George on the Renegade Report. What's going on tonight, sir?
Man, staying busy. Florida State transfer portal, as you mentioned, is kind of wound down now. You know, we could have conversations for the rest of the year about what the roster is going to look like, you know, coming up to August 30th. Mike Norvell made some comments, spoke to the media, or did a release the other day. No spring game. So it's going to be, you know, from here all the way to August, we'll be able to argue and talk about what the roster is going to look like, what they're going to do. So no, I believe they call it the spring showcase. They're just not going to have it this year due to Doak Campbell being under construction, along with the football-only facility, which is all going to kind of connect. So, yeah, that's pretty tough, but plenty of conversation to be had with everybody we brought in. And as you mentioned, high school recruiting is kind of top of the mind right now. The staff's kind of switched gears now that the drop ad has ended. The majority of any kind of transfers at this point that come in, those are going to be guys that are going to be enrolling after spring. Any commits, high school commits and things of that nature, you look at possibly getting on campus in May, June, around then, instead of for spring. You know, and before we get into who possibly they could get, there's 4 or 5 names out there. You mentioned it off air, but Antonio Cromartie Jr., class of 2025 defensive back, somebody that, you know, a lot of people wanted to come to Florida State. He's a ball player. If you put on the tape, he's got a nose for the football. You definitely see the tutelage there from his dad and kind of some of those genes in play. But he was kind of undersized, you know, 5'9", 5'10", but he just keeps growing. His dad said that he was like 2 inches taller than the services even had him a couple of weeks ago on James Coleman's podcast over there on Den Media Group. And sure enough, apparently he grew like 2 more inches over the summer. He's at 6'1", I believe, maybe 180, 190. But, you know, hearing his dad talk, he thinks he could get up to 205 and play around then. So, yeah, you even see there on 247, they still have him listed 5'11", 170, but he's closer to 180, 185, 6'1" now. So some people will say just it's because of the extended roster. You no longer have walk-ons anymore. You have 105 slots, but, you know, Pat Surtain is extremely chintzy when it comes to his defensive backs. As you can tell by him not really going after anybody in the portal outside of maybe a safety or two. And the kind of elite talent he got there to kind of carry the previous recruiting class with like 7 or 8 blue chip defensive backs. A lot of young talent coming up, and it'd be great to see if Cromartie Jr. can make an impact. And he has the size and all the measurables to do it at this point.
I'm doing a little reminiscing here. I'm going back on his old man's NFL stats because, man, he could play. He was in the league for 11 years, and he intercepted 31 passes, led the league his second season with 10 picks.
What a time for DB play back then, too. Like, I mean, he came in and was just the man for like 11 years. But you had Revis Island. You had, you know, a couple other guys who were the best for a while, but he had a good 2 or 3 year stretch where I think he was the best corner in all of college football. He got that first team All-Pro one of those years. They call him the prototype for a reason. You know, he had, if you were going to cook up what an elite defensive back could possibly be, that's who you'd cook up.
So Florida State fans hope that you get that second dose, that second generation of Antonio Cromartie, anything close to what the first edition was, because, yeah, he was special and he was fun to watch. No doubt about it. And again, I love stats, and I haven't heard that name in forever. So as soon as I saw that about 45 minutes before we recorded, and then you went into the breakdown of Junior, I just wanted to go back and look at the stats with the Chargers and the Jets, and again, led the league in interceptions his second year. So good stuff there on the high school front. And now, like you mentioned to me before we went live, to try to track down all the high school recruits that this staff is looking at is going to be nearly impossible. I don't know what you've got in regards to any particular guys that you would like to review, or any hot takes on anything. But you said junior day is coming up.
Yeah, I've been teasing it on the show. I've been, we were really invested in the portal and all the moves and the coaching staff. It's tough, like you said. I've been pushing back these 2026 kids for a long time. It's one of those things, like, it's really hard to believe that the class of 2026, that's recruiting right now. That's what's going on. Like, the traditional signing day hasn't passed, but there's very few of those 25 battles left. We'll talk about them in a minute, but yeah, this Friday, the 18th, FSU has, I'd say, over 100 people coming. I'm not sure if that's all like starred recruits exactly, but pretty much anybody that they're after, they've offered, is coming either this weekend, starting on Friday the 18th, or the following 25th. These big junior days that Mike Norvell has, a lot of momentum, a lot of stuff going. So we'll get into that Friday as guys starts, showing up on campus and pointing out the biggest names and who the staff's really getting after. When that day comes, so look forward to that Friday at 7 Eastern. But circling back before I get too far ahead of myself, there are a couple 2025 guys to continue to keep an eye on. 4 of them to be exact. Jason Brown is the one I'll mention first, because everywhere I've been on here on our show saying I pretty much think he's almost like a silent commit for FSU. He's not, taking other visits. He's not entertaining other schools from what I've seen. Anytime something happens good for FSU, he's tweeting with a bunch of, Chiskaball emojis and all that good stuff. It really seems like he's locked in with Herb Hand and this staff. He was previously committed to UCF. He's 6'7", 260-pound offensive tackle. I'm not sure, top 50 offensive lineman in the country. I'm not sure exactly where he ranks right off the top of my head, as my dogs tear up the house. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm about to have to holler at him. But yeah, I think Jason Brown is somebody who could pencil into this class and would be a huge pickup, a huge addition in rebuilding that room to go along with Sean Perret out of South Georgia, and also Mario Nash, another guy that could possibly play some tackle or guard, depending on how it works out at Florida State. And another guy that's received, I forgot to mention, Jason Brown, and according to me saying I think he's a lot, I think 2 or 3 crystal balls from other people have finally rolled in. Seemed like they were slow playing that one for a while, but 2 or 3 people, I believe, have put their crystal balls in. And another guy that got some crystal balls is a guy named Chavez Thompson, currently committed to FIU. He's a 3-star offensive line that was committed to Oregon for some time before. Twitter's going to Twitter, and people are going to question anybody you take. Since Herb Hand's got here, and you just heard me talking about Jason Brown, we already know the 2 tackles he brought in, 6'7", 6'5", beefed up the entire offensive line, everybody over 300 pounds except for the center. Herb Hand is a measurable guy. Like, this isn't another Alex Atkins. He's going to go out and get guys. It's not going to be one guy over 6'5" in 5 years and Lucas Simmons with Herb Hand. But for whatever reason, this is a guy they were recruiting at UCF. A lot of schools are recruiting, currently committed to FIU. He's 6'1", 310 pounds, which is just, that's not numbers you see every day. And you expect somebody to be a mess at that weight, but you throw on the tape and the dude, he initiates contact and he blows up blockers. And he's one of those guys that we'll see if he can supersede it. I haven't talked to Herb Hand. We talked about this with CJ Wilson from Dope Talk on our channel last night. Like, is this a guy they're taking because they have 105 spots and he can be a culture guy? Are you just getting bodies, like I said, to try to reset this room? You've already brought 4 guys into the portal. You bring another 4 guys out of high school. All of a sudden, you can really reset a culture and not give guys an opportunity to think, oh, well, I'm not going to start, but I'll still be the first guy off the bench. I can still loaf or whatever the case may be. They got to love this guy's attitude, and we'll see how it turns out. But I'd say Chavez Thompson and Jason Brown are really good odds of getting added to this 2025 class. It's already, I believe, top 15. It changes. It moves up and down, maybe top 20, 18th or something like that, if you look at the overall. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. There's a couple other names that I'm not so confident on. Names that Florida State's been involved with for a long time, for years, with the other staff, pretty much have written off, the tackle, Ty Haywood out of Texas. He was committed to Bama, but it's been known for months that he was just holding that there for a flip or whatever the case may be. He was moving on to bigger and better things. Michigan's been the favorite for a while. I've completely wrote it off. But it keeps getting brought up. Beat writers kids keep asking the kid, and I believe he's making a visit to Florida State sometime in the coming weeks. I don't know if they have an official left. I believe it'd have to be an unofficial visit if I'm not mistaken. But Herb Hand and the staff, the guys they've identified and really went after, they've landed. So I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility, but with Barstool and bringing together all the money over there at Michigan to sign Bryce Underwood on top of the momentum they had before they beat Ohio State and then Alabama back to end the year, it's going to be really tough. But yeah, that's something that's going on. The staff is after him, actively continue to consider that one. The next one that I think is maybe possible, still pretty low chance. I'm not going to put a percentage point on it. If I did, it'd be somewhere around a third or less at this point. But they really made a good impression on Zahir Mathis when they got him on campus last weekend, somebody that they've been pushing for, was previously committed to Ohio State. Now Michigan, again, is in it. Any number of schools could reach back and get on him. The crystal balls, as I kind of learned last night on air, that are in for him were like the ones that were previous to him committing to Ohio State before the flip and things of that nature. So take that with a grain of salt. Look out for a Michigan team to be a favorite here. But they've already got, a loaded class, a defensive line class. Obviously, they're killing it right now. We'll see. Maybe they can talk him into being the guy, somebody like Kevin Wynn, that's obviously going to be, probably second on the depth chart at the zero technique the second he gets here. I'm not, possibly he could be somebody they sell on being that next great edge rusher, defensive end in this scheme. So we'll see there. More hope there. I think there's a good chance he could possibly get three out of these four, but more likely you get the two offensive linemen in Chase and Brown and Chavez Thompson. But man, if you could grab in Zahir, this is a guy that moves you up a spot or two in the rankings. Same thing with Haywood, but guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I just long road to hoe over there with the talented tackle.
Two highly prized guys there at the end, definitely in Haywood and Mathis. So if Florida State could get one of those, and so again, you're feeling a little bit better about Mathis than you are Haywood.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the consensus around the Florida State beat timeline and everything else there. Still not I'm not ready to put in a crystal ball. But with pot roast and kind of the guys they've brought in already, and Florida State didn't get near as far away on defense as they did on offense. We've already brought in guys that are going to start at tackle and things of that nature. Probably a little harder on Haywood and just how much money he's worth. But Mathis, they feel like there's a real chance there. However the NIL works behind the scenes, I don't want to incriminate or say anything like that. But they'll get a good number, and hopefully we'll have a shot with him. We'll keep you updated, but I wouldn't lose too much sleep over Haywood for the time being, that's for sure.
George, it's a good look with the garnet on there, the nice dress shirt with the garnet that we got displayed all over the place. It's a good look right there.
Yeah, my StreamYard's acting all crazy, so I can hardly see myself. But I wore this shirt last night for the regular show, and I had the top buttoned. Yeah, tiny hat. He did not let me live through it. Door-to-door Bible salesman, all the stuff. He had all the jokes for me.
Well, I just flat out said you look good because against the backdrop, it's a good look right now, and it's actually a good segue into our next segment, which I don't know is going to last that long because I don't have much to say about uniform numbers. But for some people, they are uptight about uniform numbers. Now, when I was a kid, I don't know if you were like this. When I first became a sports fan, oh man, I could tell you everybody's jersey numbers. And that was a big deal to me. The best running backs were 32 or 34, maybe 24. The best quarterbacks when I was growing up were 12 and so forth and so on. But I couldn't tell you whose uniform numbers basically unless I've seen him play like 3 weeks in a row. But you mentioned to me that there's some angst on social media about Roydell Williams getting number 5. Like that's going to end civilization or something.
Yeah, man. I think I reached that point. It's probably been building up, but I reached that point right now because I did not even look yet at the new number. But I did see a bit of an uproar on Twitter on Roydell's number, as you mentioned. There's a thing, I don't know how old this is, 15 years old maybe, where D linemen, quarterbacks, DBs, it didn't matter. The low numbers, 0 through 10, were like elite numbers. The different coaching staffs, I'm pretty sure, for sure under Willie Taggart, if you had a single-digit number, that meant you were a leader. You know, you had to kind of earn those. Different other places, I don't know that Mike Norvell cares so much more than it's about seniority and, you know, what numbers available. I don't know that he's out here making judgments on players on numbers. I think that's kind of maybe what people were thinking about with Roydell Williams. And look, he got a bad rap. I was hard on him this year. His yards after tackle or initial contact were some of the worst I've ever seen. But I don't know if he was injured or if it was just the fact of the O-line was so bad. Like, you know, he was just trying to push things. But he's coming back, and he's, you know, there's been some video out there of him training. He looks like a freak. He had some good carries towards the end of the year. Fun running back room. We'll see exactly how it goes on there as he pulls up all the single digits. But I'm not, you know, I'm not that upset with it. I think it'll be all right. You know, it's a generational thing with those low numbers, but that's where the outrage comes. See, Deuce to 0 makes perfect sense. Thomas Castellanos is what you'd think 1. Squirrel White with the 4. That's a big one for wide receivers these days. Keon Coleman, of course, bore that. 7 for Stephon Thompson. That might tell you a little bit about where he thinks he's going to play in this defense. If he's going to be attacking the edge and be that, I don't even know what they would call that linebacker, the outside linebacker for you know, if you're talking about a 3-4, Stephon Thompson wearing number 7, that makes sense. Christian Jones, we've had some good players at that position. In the limited time that we had the 3-4 with Jeremy Pruitt, Christian Jones like fit that thing perfect. It was really a beautiful thing to see. Deontay McCray with number 8, Timmy Jernigan's number, some significance there. You know, it's different, a little different. You know, he was more of a 0 technique. McCray's going to be on one of the end positions, if I had to guess. Probably a stronger side for this defense. Kevin Sperry with number 9. Yeah, and that just goes to show you, folks, if you're freaking out about a running back's number or anything else, Kevin Sperry is a true freshman, probably going to redshirt unless something goes wrong. And he got number 9. So that shows you what that means. James Williams, probably, I guess he's your highest rated defensive line recruit, if I'm not mistaken. Big time pass rusher off the edge. We know exactly what he's going to do in that 3-man front. Diamante Diggs gets 13, takes over for Lolo Hea. 6'5" through 260 pounds. Going to be fun to watch. Randy Pittman gets 13 at tight end. Jordan Scott with 14. Hey, that makes sense. You're 6'7", 215 pounds. You take over old Jordan. Johnny Wilson. Excuse me, Johnny Wilson's number. Tomorrow, Arnaud, one of those guys you flip with 15. Javon Boggs, boy, I'm excited about him. The pain of losing Destin Hill turns into excitement for Javon Boggs. We'll see how early he gets on the field, but I like him at wide receiver. Max Redmond, the defensive back, with 21. Chase Lofton, 23. Caleb Loveley with 29. I love that unassuming number. I can't think of a single player that wore 29. Elijah Herring with 31. Ethan Pritchett, number 35. 51 for Luke Pettibon, perfect for a center. 55 for Gunnar Hansen. 55 for Kevin Wynn. Okay, I like that. Did Jacoby McDaniel wear 55? I hope I don't get eat up. Hope I'm giving a shout out to the right person there. For Kevin Wynn, he's going to be bad. He's going to be fun to watch as a true freshman come in here. If anything I've heard and seen on tape is to lead me to a belief, it's that. Micah Pettis, your other offensive tackle from Ole Miss, 57, 60 from Nash. Adrian Medley with the guardiest guard number of all time, 76. And Trayshawn Guillory, the 6'4", 215 pound, another one of those flips, I believe from Florida, number 83. I don't know. I'm a fan of the numbers. I think they pick numbers that represent former players and people at Florida State. Yeah, pretty good. And I didn't see Roydell up there, the one that everybody was up in arms about. So maybe they let the drama come back to him and he decided to go back to 24.
Yeah, so that must have been. So this is, we want to give due credit. This is coming from FSU Seminoles, and basically jersey numbers, initial measurements released for Florida State football newcomers. So that's all that is telling us.
Oh, that's right. Because I didn't see Edwin Joseph. Edwin Joseph is taking over number 3. So that just covered the newcomers, the portal guys, and the 2025 guys, not the players on the team that switch numbers. Probably not that many of them, but Roydell Williams is one everybody was upset about, and Edwin Joseph getting number 3. Of course, Derwin James wore that number. Ronald Darby before him, if I'm not mistaken. 3 is a big number for DBs around Florida State for sure. So a lot hyped about Edwin Joseph. I don't think there's not a defensive back that people are much higher on than him heading into this year. Somebody who is a redshirt freshman, stepped up as a leader, and is just always, when he's got his opportunities, he's been there. So real excited to see him.
Mike Myrek showing up for us as he always does. Appreciate you, Mike. And a few others here. Richard Bass leaving all sorts of comments. Thank you for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. Asked a question here that Mark and George, do you agree? Gentlemen, do you agree with Coach Norvell having a focus on the trenches like Ryan Day at Ohio State or Kirby Smart? Strong line, strong team. I don't know why he picked out those teams in particular, but
I mean, if you're looking at what you want, of course they're going to go for that. But no, that was the main focus of the rebuild here. It was very clear that it was really important to Mike Norvell to get Gus, but also get Herb Hand. He was possibly going to get that UCF job that held things up for a bit, but they got him in here, and you really rebuilt your entire line of scrimmage. You got 4 starters on the offensive line that are bigger for the most part. Take out the center, but your tackles are bigger. Your one guard's bigger. You get a bigger defensive line pretty much across the board. Darrell Jackson returns. That was a recruitment job to get him from going to the NFL. You upgrade. You get basically 4 defensive ends that are up to snuff and bigger than the 230, 240-pound guys we had here. Most of those guys hit the portal. You see it in high school recruiting. Who they're recruiting now, they're still trying to bring offensive line bodies like we talked about after some top defensive linemen. You already signed your best tackle in almost a decade in Kevin Wynn. So, I definitely think it's all going to be about the line of scrimmages here in the next couple of years. 2 years down the road, if Florida State handles business this year in games, if they can do what Michigan did this year, Florida State can do that. They'll be well on the way to getting back up to being one of the best and most talented teams in the nation. But for now, it's just going to be the focus on that. This isn't Boston College. This isn't somewhere where you're going to get the pat on the back or whatever. But look for them to really focus on running the ball and being physical and figuring that out this year. The transfers and hopefully some young guys start to get in there, but they've certainly flipped it. I haven't added it up, but it's got to be close to 30 offensive linemen and defensive linemen they've brought in between high school and the transfer portal.
Folks, the last Renegade Report live show is still fresh from Tuesday night, so get on over there and check it out with George and the rest of the crew. And you're going live on Friday, correct?
Yes, sir. Friday at 7 Eastern.
All right. Is there anything else we wanted to hit on?
I think we got it. Look, February 1st, we always got to bring up something. The shoe's going to drop. I've said it's pretty much going to stay radio silent until after the playoff as far as ESPN deciding whether to extend their contract with the ACC for another 7-8 years. I feel like they don't want any of that in the news. It makes me wonder, if they were just going to extend it, why wouldn't you leak it, put it out? Maybe because they don't want FSU putting out a release saying, okay, well, now that we know it's extended, we're battening down the hatches. Or is it because they don't want the negative publicity of not extending? So you never know how those things work, but we've talked about a lot here. sure seems like they denigrate the conference at every chance they get. And it's like, or lack of representation. Like when FSU was, about to get in the playoff, they have the SEC commissioner up there. You got Kirk lobbying for Alabama over Florida State. They didn't have Eric McLean. I don't even want to say his last name wrong, but Eric from Clemson. They didn't have him from the ACC network or EJ Manuel sitting up there making a case. And then for it to happen this year, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but Kirk really beat the trumpet and tripled and quadrupled down on it. That like Indiana had no place in the playoff. So it's one of those things. We'll see what happens, but February 1st is coming up pretty dang quick now that we're the 14th. So 2 weeks and a couple of days, we're going to know something.
And in addition to that, most important decision off the field, of course, we get spring practice starting sometime in March, and we will time it out in regards to doing some position previews leading up to spring practice, and we'll knock out 1 or 2 per week. George, appreciate you being here. Without you, we don't have a show. So thanks so much for your dedication. Always good to see you. And folks, Renegade Report. You should be subscribed. Get on over there. Support in every way possible. Like all the videos. Like all the live streams. Support financially if you are able, and certainly show the appreciation there. We are here covering Florida State football due to George, and that's on Wednesday nights, and we would like to do a lot more. But for the deep dive, for the real Florida State football coverage, Renegade Report's where you need to be. All right, sir.
I appreciate that pat on the back. I'll take it every day. But, first show I ever went on was this one. So learned a lot of stuff here with Mark. Continue to grow. As long as they'll keep having me, we'll be here on Wednesdays. Make sure you check us out, like you said, Tuesday and Friday at 7 Eastern. Jen and Tiny Hat Show, the kind of not safe for work adult. Renegade Roast is Mondays at 8:30. They've got a really fans from all over teams come to get roasted. Tiny Hat has a lot of fun with that. But we'll keep you updated on all the news and keep showing up here on Wednesday to give the best summer we can of it in 30 or 45 minutes to an hour.
I'm going to put that on my calendar as soon as we get off here, because I've got a Big Ten show Monday nights at 9 o'clock. But for a half hour while I'm preparing for that, I've got to throw this roast on and see what that's all about. Yeah.
Don't come to get your panties in a wad. If you got a roast, throw it out there. If you want to get roasted, some people, just want to get roasted. Tiny Hat will oblige, and Jen, she's hilarious. When she gets on a roll, on a rant on something, you can kind of feel it from her soul. But it's all fun and games. We get just as many Canes and other fan bases in there just to give us a hard time. It's a fun time.
Sweet. Thanks, George. See you next week.
Yes, sir. Go